Geographic and political conditions in Western Iran pre-559 Year BCE context. Before the rise of Cyrus the Great, Western Iran was organized through a regional political structure dominated by Median authority. Control across the region operated through interconnected territorial systems centered on the Median capital of Ecbatana. The landscape of Western Iran contained multiple environmental zones, including elevated mountain corridors, dry plateau regions, agricultural valleys, and long-distance movement routes connecting Mesopotamia, the Iranian Plateau, and Anatolia. Political and administrative control across these regions depended on the management of fortified settlements, transportation corridors, agricultural production zones, and tributary networks. Within this broader political environment, several regional polities existed under varying levels of Median influence. These included local ruling groups, tribal confederations, and subordinate territorial administrations distributed across Western Iran and adjacent regions. The territory of Anshan, associated with the Persian population, functioned within this wider Median-controlled framework. Persian political authority at this stage remained regional in scale and operated under the broader balance of power maintained by Median royal administration. Administrative authority in the wider region was concentrated under Median rule, centered in Ecbatana. From this political center, Median influence extended across Western Iranian territories through systems of regional oversight, military coordination, and tributary relationships. The Persian population in Anshan maintained localized governance structures while remaining positioned within the larger Median political sphere. Regional authority was organized through existing territorial arrangements rather than through an independent imperial framework. At this stage, no unified Persian imperial structure yet existed. Political organization across Western Iran remained divided among multiple regional authorities operating under broader Median dominance. The broader Near Eastern environment surrounding Western Iran also contained several major political powers during this period. Babylonian authority remained active in Mesopotamia. Anatolian territories in the west were governed through separate regional kingdoms, and eastern frontier regions consisted of decentralized territorial zones connected through trade and movement networks. These conditions formed the political and geographic environment present in Western Iran prior to c. 559 Year BCE, before the transfer of regional authority that later reorganized control across the Iranian plateau under Persian leadership. Cyrus the Great is recorded as holding kingship over Anshan beginning approximately c. 559 Year BCE. Anshan functioned as a regional political center within the broader Western Iranian landscape. At this stage, territorial authority associated with Cyrus was geographically limited to the Persian core region located within the southern portion of the Iranian plateau. The governance structure in Anshan operated at a local and regional level. Administrative control was centered on settlement-based authority systems with oversight of agricultural zones surrounding rural territories and nearby fortified locations. Political organization remained dependent on existing regional frameworks rather than an independent imperial structure. Within the wider regional system, surrounding territories continued to operate under the broader Median political sphere, centered in Ecbatana. At this point, Persian authority in Anshan functioned as a subordinate regional administration within that larger geopolitical structure. Administrative activity during this period was focused on local governance functions. These included the maintenance of territorial order, management of local resources, and coordination of regional authority within the defined boundaries of Anshan and its surrounding districts. No evidence from this period indicates the presence of a developed imperial administrative system. Political authority remained regionally contained, and governance structures did not yet extend beyond localized territorial control. This phase represents a documented early stage in the political career of Cyrus prior to the later expansion and reorganization of territorial authority that followed in subsequent years within Western Iran. Transition of regional authority c. 550 Year BCE. A major shift in political control occurred in Western Iran around c. 550 Year BCE following the collapse of Median royal authority under Astyages. The Median political system, previously centered in Ecbatana, had functioned through a network of regional dependencies extending across Western Iran. These dependencies were organized through layered administrative relationships connecting local rulers, regional commanders, and central authority structures. During this transition period, control across former Median territories was restructured. Political authority previously coordinated through Median royal administration was redistributed across multiple regional centers. Existing governance arrangements were replaced or reorganized as new command relationships were established. Following this transition, control of former Median territories was reorganized under Persian leadership, centered on Cyrus the Great. Authority was consolidated through Persian-led regional control points, which assumed responsibility for governance across areas previously administered under Median oversight. Administrative structures during this phase were adjusted to reflect the new distribution of authority. Local administrative units continued to function within their respective regions, while reporting lines and political alignment shifted toward Persian leadership. Territorial management was maintained through existing regional frameworks, now operating under revised central coordination. This period is identified in historical reconstruction as the formation stage of a new political structure later classified by historians as the early phase of the Achaemenid Empire. At this stage, the structure remained in development, with governance arrangements gradually aligning under Persian authority across western Iran. The outcome of this transition was a reorganization of political control across the region, in which Median royal authority was replaced by a Persian-centered system of territorial governance that formed the basis for subsequent imperial expansion in later decades. Transition of regional authority c. 550 Year BCE. A major shift in political control occurred in western Iran around c. 550 Year BCE following the collapse of Median royal authority under Astyages. The Median political system, previously centered in Ecbatana, had functioned through a network of regional dependencies extending across western Iran. These dependencies were organized through layered administrative relationships connecting local rulers, regional commanders, and central authority structures. During this transition period, control across former Median territories was restructured. Political authority previously coordinated through Median royal administration was redistributed across multiple regional centers. Existing governance arrangements were replaced or reorganized as new command relationships were established. Following this transition, control of former Median territories was reorganized under Persian leadership, centered on Cyrus the Great. Authority was consolidated through Persian-led regional control points, which assumed responsibility for governance across areas previously administered under Median oversight. Administrative structures during this phase were adjusted to reflect the new distribution of authority. Local administrative units continued to function within their respective regions, while reporting lines and political alignment shifted toward Persian leadership. Territorial management was maintained through existing regional frameworks, now operating under revised central coordination. This period is identified in historical reconstruction as the formation stage of a new political structure later classified by historians as the early phase of the Achaemenid Empire. At this stage, the structure remained in development, with governance arrangements gradually aligning under Persian authority across western Iran. The outcome of this transition was a reorganization of political control across the region, in which Median royal authority was replaced by a Persian-centered system of territorial governance that formed the basis for subsequent imperial expansion in later decades. Eastern Mesopotamian transition, 539 Year BCE. In 539 Year BCE, administrative control of Babylon was transferred following the entry of Persian forces into the city of Babylon during the reign of Cyrus the Great. Babylon at this time functioned as a major urban and administrative center in Mesopotamia, with established systems of governance, taxation, record-keeping, and temple administration. The city was integrated into a wider regional network of Mesopotamian political and economic activity. Contemporary Babylonian records, including administrative chronicles, describe a change in rulership during this period. These records document a transition in governing authority and adjustments in the administrative structure responsible for managing urban and regional affairs. Following the entry of Persian authority, the existing administrative systems within Babylon continued to operate with modifications to leadership and oversight structures. Local administrative personnel, scribal institutions, and temple-based economic systems remained functional under revised governing arrangements. Babylon was subsequently incorporated into the expanding territorial framework under Persian authority. This integration extended Persian control into Mesopotamia, linking the city's administrative systems to a broader interregional structure of governance. The transition of Babylon represents a documented phase in which one of the major urban centers of the ancient Near East was placed under Persian-controlled administration, contributing to the expansion of coordinated territorial governance across Western Asia. Administrative integration of former polities following territorial expansion during the reign of Cyrus the Great. Previously independent administrative regions were incorporated into a wider system of regional governance spanning Western Iran, Anatolia, and Mesopotamia. Across these regions, existing local administrative structures were maintained where possible. Urban centers, regional districts, and established economic systems continued operating under pre-existing institutional frameworks, while overall authority was realigned under Persian-controlled oversight. Local administrative officials were assigned authority over designated regions. These officials were responsible for managing taxation systems, maintaining civil order, coordinating resource distribution, and overseeing regional infrastructure. Their positions operated within a hierarchical structure of accountability linked to higher administrative authority. Governance across the incorporated territories functioned through a distributed model in which regional units retained operational continuity while reporting to centralized authority. This structure allowed for coordination across geographically diverse regions without uniform local restructuring. Later imperial inscriptions from subsequent rulers indicate the development of more standardized provincial administrative structures across the empire. These inscriptions describe a system in which territories were organized into defined administrative regions governed by appointed officials operating under centralized supervision. These later developments reflect administrative evolution following the initial consolidation period under Cyrus. The early framework established during this period had provided the structural basis upon which subsequent rulers refined and formalized imperial governance systems across the broader territorial network. Segment 7: A movement and control of imperial territory. Late reign phase. During the later phase of the rule of Cyrus the Great, administrative and military activity extended into eastern frontier regions beyond Mesopotamia and Anatolia. The eastern frontier zones of the expanding Persian-controlled territories consisted of geographically diverse environments, including steppe regions, desert corridors, and highland routes. These areas were characterized by lower levels of centralized administrative development compared to the western urban and river valley centers. Historical records describe continued operations in these frontier zones involving territorial stabilization and regional control. These activities are documented as part of ongoing efforts to maintain secure movement routes, establish administrative presence, and coordinate authority across distant regions. Movement across these territories relied on established route networks connecting regional settlements, military stations, and administrative outposts. These systems enabled communication and logistical coordination between central authority and peripheral zones. Administrative systems were applied across geographically diverse regions, reflecting the extension of governance into territories with varying levels of existing institutional structure. Local governance arrangements in these areas were incorporated into broader oversight frameworks, allowing for coordination between central authority and regional administration. This phase reflects the documented expansion of administrative reach into frontier regions during the later period of Cyrus' rule, prior to the final recorded phase of his activities in eastern territories. Segment 8: Final recorded campaign activities. c. 530 Year BCE. The final recorded phase of the activities of Cyrus the Great occurred in eastern frontier regions beyond the core administrative centers of western Iran, Anatolia, and Mesopotamia. These frontier regions consisted of sparsely documented territories characterized by extended distances between settlements, varied environmental conditions, and limited centralized administrative visibility in surviving historical records. Movement through these areas followed established regional routes linking frontier zones to more structured administrative regions of the empire. Classical sources provide differing accounts regarding specific operational details during this period. Greek historiographical traditions, particularly those associated with later authors, describe alternative versions of events, while other surviving records do not provide equivalent detail for the same time frame. The historical record therefore preserves multiple narrative traditions regarding the final phase of activity. Despite variations in narrative detail across sources, the chronological record consistently places the conclusion of Cyrus' rule around c. 530 Year BCE. This marks the end of the documented administrative and military activities directly attributed to his reign. Following this point, governance transitions to successor authority within the expanding imperial structure, continuing the administrative systems established during the preceding period. Segment 9. Succession and continuity of governance structures following c. 530 Year BCE. Imperial authority transition to successor governance under Cambyses II. Within the expanding political framework associated with the early Persian imperial system established during the reign of Cyrus the Great, the transition of authority occurred across the existing administrative network spanning western Iran, Anatolia, and Mesopotamia. Regional governance structures continued operating under established lines of administrative responsibility, including local officials responsible for taxation, regional order, and coordination with central authority. Administrative systems established during the period of Cyrus continued to function within the evolving political structure later identified by historians as the Achaemenid Empire. These systems maintained continuity in regional organization, enabling governance across geographically diverse territories through existing administrative frameworks. The territorial structure remained organized through regional divisions that managed local administration under centralized oversight. Communication and governance between regional centers and central authority continued through established institutional channels. The burial site associated with Cyrus is located at Tomb of Cyrus. The monument is situated in the region of Pasargadae and is associated with the historical memory of the founder of the early Persian imperial system. This concludes the documented sequence of administrative and territorial developments associated with the reign and immediate succession period of Cyrus.